Shalom, shalom, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Unworthy Yet Loved. It's your hostess, Liz Mejia, and I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to have you guys. Today, I'm going to share my breast tumor story. I did share before how I got the breast tumor, but I want to share about living with it and everything that I felt like God taught me as I had the tumor and while being in college at the time. So, I got diagnosed with a past fibroadenoma. I don't remember all the details, but I remember that because it was a past fibroadenoma, it would continue to grow. So it was benign. And I found out I had the tumor when I was laying down watching a movie. I was a sophomore in college. It was Yeah, I was 19. It was a few months with yeah, so I was 19. I was laying down and I had my laptop on my chest, and then I felt something really hard on my chest. And so then I checked myself, and then I thought it was weird. So I went to the emergency, and the nurse, she looked really concerned. And I remember being so nonchalant about everything. At 19, I felt like I was really numb when it came to like my life, and all I cared about was, I guess, like my friends and the person I was dating and graduating, or keeping my grades, keeping the standard that I set for myself, the illusion of perfection that I created. So it just wasn't possible for me to be able to process the reality of what I was in. So to me, it was like, whatever, okay, cool, it's something, but it didn't even matter. I remember being so relaxed about it. And I went to the nurse, and she did a physical, and she was really concerned. And she said, "How old are you?" And I said, 19. She said, 19? And then the doctor came, he also did a physical, and he was like, "You're 19?" And in that hospital, they didn't have a radiology department or something like that. He just couldn't do a mammogram. So, or yeah, he just couldn't do what he needed to do. So he told me I had to schedule an appointment with a different hospital. I went to school in a really small town. So then I go to the other hospital, or I go to my doctor. So we have like the emergency room, the primary doctor in the university, and then we have the like big hospital, the school's hospital. So I go to my primary doctor. She also gives me a physical. And now it's like real. Like three different doctors are like, yeah, like this is definitely a mass. You need to, we need to see a oncologist. Or no, you need to see a radiologist, and then we need to find out if it is cancer, so on and so on. So she measured it, and she wrote that down, whatever. Then I go to my next appointment. And in the midst of this, so let me pause. I have all these appointments, and I'm just going to appointments, but I'm still in university, and I'm still taking maybe 5 classes. And because I was an engineering major, my courses were very intense, like physics and calc. I didn't really have a lot of electives because I took them all like my freshman year. And so, or you kind of have like one semester where you have more electives than other, and that just wasn't the semester where I had a lot of electives. So I remember having a calc exam. I think it was my midterm or my final. It was virtual because getting we were coming out of COVID, so a lot of classes were still remote. And I remember taking the exam and just rushing through it. Like I was just really stressed because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna do this exam and I have to go to the doctors in like the next 30 minutes. And the thing about these appointments with specialists, if you don't make it, like you have to wait like 3 more months. And I really wanted to just get this ball rolling with whatever this was, because I had just had a car accident and all these things were happening, and I just wanted to get the ball rolling. So I like rush through my exam and I completely bomb it. And I just go straight to my appointment. That's when I have my third physical. She measures it, and then she gives me um she then sets up an appointment for me to see, is it radiology? I don't remember, but I think it was radiology. So then in the middle of this, between my that appointment and the next appointment, so now it's been about a month since I've been going to different doctors, and I've been sitting down on my phone, like looking up on YouTube, like what could a mass mean? Why do girls, like, why would someone this my age get it? So I'm looking, and I don't find anything, guys. Like when I tell you, there's this very like clear distinction of like no cancer versus cancer, and unless you know you have cancer, there's like not a lot of information. Now there is, but when I was 19 and I was looking, there wasn't a lot of like YouTube or people talking about like, oh, I have a mass. And I found two videos. I remember watching two videos of two different girls, and they were just not very helpful, but at least I knew I wasn't the only person. And so I this is when I really, really started to pray and like really seek God, because now I'm like, oh my gosh, like not only can I lose my degree, but I can lose my life. Like this could be cancer, and then what? And I don't want to stress my parents out, but my parents were very supportive and they were very helpful. But this is kind of where my mindset is, right? So I'm kind of failing my biggest classes, physics and calc, and I'm trying to navigate making all these appointments while also not telling my parents all the details yet, because I don't want to stress them out because I'm not physically where they are. I went to school in North Florida, like northern Florida ish, northern central Florida. So I wasn't really close to everyone physically, and so then I go to this appointment, right? Which is like the specialist. And I remember walking in and being the youngest person there. And you could tell I was the youngest person there. And I could tell everyone was looking at me while I was looking at them, because I think there was this sense of shock that I was there. And then also for me, it was a sense of shock to see so many women there. It was really sad to see so many women go through that, just sitting there. And I remember going in the room and putting on that pink robe. And it was really sad. It was just, you don't know what to expect. Like, it's very overwhelming because you don't know what it could be, right? Like, they're about to do, oh my gosh, an ultrasound. That's what it's called. I've been drawing a blank. So they're going to do an ultrasound on you, or they were about to do one on me. But when you're changing in the changing room, you've gone, in my mind I'm thinking I've already gone through all these doctors. So many people have seen me naked, or at least my upper half, and I'm all alone. So all I really had was like God, and then just praying in the moment. And I really, really wanted to get my degree. Like there was nothing in my mind that could ever stop me from getting the degree that I have. And it wasn't about the degree, it was about the career. Like, ever since I was a child, I wanted to be in, to go to college. But that's a story for another time. Um, so I'm in this room, I'm wearing this pink robe, and so I'm putting it on. I'm getting a little bit emotional. And then I go to the next room, right? And they're so sweet. Everyone's so sweet there. Everyone was really, really sweet. And we do the ultrasound, and I can see and he can see and we can all see that there's definitely a mass inside of me. And he goes, it doesn't look like cancer. It looks like a fibroadenoma, very common in girls your age. You can, we can take a piece of it, do a biopsy, and then, or you can just keep it in there. And if it grows, then we can go from there. But it doesn't look like cancer, but we don't know for sure. And so I don't remember all the details, so I might be missing like some things. But I remember in my mind I was like, oh, I'm definitely getting a biopsy and I definitely need to know. So one thing about me, I've released a lot of that now, but at the time I was a big like I need to know. And I'm a big nerd and very logical. So to me it was like, okay, I started once he said the name fibroadenoma, then I started googling like what am I eating? Um like what causes this? Because I thought I could control the outcome if I just knew enough. Like maybe I didn't know enough. Maybe I did something that allowed it to get to where it was going or allowed this to happen to me. Like I almost felt like it was my fault. Like maybe I worked too hard or maybe I did too much. Like maybe um there was something I did that led me to have this breast tumor. And so because I felt like it was something I did, then I felt like I had to fix it. But once I was in the room and I put that robe on and he was giving me that ultrasound, I realized that there was nothing I could do. Like there was nothing I could do. And so we scheduled a biopsy. They tell me how the process goes. So obviously, like I tell my mom everything and we scheduled it. So she's gonna come. And I remember like right after that appointment, I immediately sent an email to my counselor and I said, hey, like I bombed my calc exam. I just don't know how I'm going to do this. I have very rigorous classes and I've been back to back appointments and I don't want to like stop school. It to me not stopping school wasn't even an option or a thought in my mind. In my it was like, well, I'm just gonna have to stop trying to find out what's wrong with me because to me school has always been so important. I love learning. And so I just couldn't see myself stopping school. I don't even know how to explain it, but it was just something I couldn't give up. Like the way I know that my hair is black and I'm brown, that's the way I knew I needed to finish what I started. Um but I also knew that I needed some kind of space to deal with what was happening. So once I told my counselor, I'll never forget this. She was honestly, I feel like God uses people. I know we hear it all the time, but I really believe God uses people and he used her. He used her to make me realize that I was going to be okay because she emailed me back saying, I don't even know why I'm getting emotional, but she emailed me back saying like, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. I wish you would have reached out sooner. I am grateful and glad that you've reached out sooner. Here's my personal number. I too was diagnosed with a breast tumor when I was 19. Mind you, she's like 50 now, right? She's living her life. And so she's like, I know what you've been through. Like, let's set up a call and don't worry about your classes. We'll have you drop and we'll get them rescheduled for the summer or whatever, we'll figure it out. And I remember reading that at the gym because at the time my only coping mechanism was working out, like to the point where I did have to stop working out because I noticed how toxic it was a way for me to repress my feelings. And so I remember going to my appointment, scheduling the biopsy, telling my mom, and going straight to the gym even though they were kind of like, you shouldn't, I was straight to the gym. So I'm at the gym, I send this email, and then I see her email, and I remember I don't know if I started crying, but I probably did. Um, and so I was really sad, but I was really happy. I was happy to know that this woman who has lived this life and has done all these great things in her life has gone through a similar struggle because it made me realize, like, oh, okay, like people get through this. Even if it is cancer, even if it's not, people will like get through this. Like it is okay. And it also made me realize that I don't have to do it all by myself because my mom will support me emotionally, but as far as school, they're very strict. So I just felt like no one was gonna care that I was going through what I was going through. So if anything, I was surprised. And that right there, before I keep going, in my opinion, was a way for God to show me that I need to ask for help and I need to be okay with being vulnerable and be okay with struggling and letting people know that I'm struggling. Because prior to that, I was very big on just I'm good. I don't need anybody. Like very stone cold, very nonchalant, because that's just what's gotten me where I am. And I had a big transition in high school, so I just always had to have my best foot forward. And so being able to open up to a stranger and have her meet me in the way that she did made me realize like I can't trust people outside of my family, and I can not be okay. Like it's okay to not be okay. And so that was the beginning, right? So now she knows, and the school obviously set me up with a therapist because of what was happening. And we had the biopsy scheduled. So there's nothing I could do between that and the biopsy. I mean, I got some release in the sense that I had some comfort knowing that I wasn't going to just fail. And honestly, y'all, all I could do between then and my biopsy was pray and check myself every day. I remember praying to God, like, if this is my time, if I'm going to die, then, like, make sure my family's okay. Like, I remember almost having to accept, like, and I don't know why I did this. Like, I hadn't even had my biopsy yet. Like, I was just so, I don't want to call myself dramatic, but I can be a little bit dramatic. So I was just in awe because I saw these women in that room. And so it's almost like, wow, like when you think it's just you, it's really not just you. When you think you have it bad, you probably don't have it that bad. So some of my prayers were kind of like, God, if it's my time, then. But then in the middle of that prayer, I remember being like, God, please don't let me my time. Like, I don't want to go. And I used to always say, like, oh, I'm dead, like I'm gonna die, as a joke. But once I was in the midst of this experience. Now I don't even joke about that. Only because one, now I know words have power, and like God, the Bible says that there's power in the tongue. So now I know, like by the word, that there's power in my tongue. And then I almost think, like, did I speak that over myself when I think back at that time in my life? And so now all I have is God, because when my parents are not like supporting me because I'm in school, like I'm still in school and I'm living on, not on campus, but I'm living in school, like off campus, there's no one there. I also didn't have any friends anymore. I lost all my friends. And so all I have is God. And people talk about isolation to, get you closer to Him. It is real. And I want to encourage anyone, when you are in the midst of isolation, just into Him and on Him a little deeper, and don't focus on what you've lost. Because when I lost all my friends, I was kind of like, I was in that sadness. But once I knew my life was at stake, nothing else mattered. I was like, well, I'm too, like, there's just too much in me for me to die. Like, everyone has a purpose in this life, even if it's just to be a cook, which being a cook is actually really hard. I'm not the best cook. But even if it's just to be a mother, which is a beautiful gift, or if your purpose in life is to be someone's mother, like my mom is the best thing that has ever happened to me in my life. And I asked her one day, I said, what is like the one thing you wanted out of life? Like, is did you feel like having me stop you from that? She said that all she wanted out of life was to be my mom. And I know sometimes I'm not like the best to her, but in the sense of like I have my moments and I have my feelings and stuff, and I could be a little rude because I'm human. But just her being my mom is such a beautiful blessing, and it's almost her purpose. Like when I tell you, this woman is so patient with me. So we have to schedule biopsy. My mom takes the bus over to visit me because I had a car, so we just used my car. And so she's with me for about maybe 4 days. This woman cooks like so much food for me so that I don't have to lift a single finger. Um, we go to the hospital, we do the biopsy, and she couldn't be in the room because it was still like post COVID. And I remember being in the room just looking at the roof, and they painted like Nemo or different things, so it's pretty cool. And I just started talking to the doctors because I was under anesthesia in just one area, my breast, and not my full body. And so I was just asking them about Grey's Anatomy, like cracking jokes and trying to lighten the mood. And I remember she's trying to put the probe in my breast. She literally could not. She's like, "Oh, you're like you have very low fat percentage. It's just muscle." And so it was really hard for her to get in there. I was also like underweight. Um, so that was fun. So that she did struggle. Um, so we're in there. It took a lot longer than it should have, and I can feel the blood running down my chest, like my body. And something I want to pause there and say is that in in a weird way, all of like this gave me body confidence because I had to take my top off around so many people and be like half nude around so many people that it almost made me realize like the beauty. I know this might sound weird and controversial, but it almost just gave me a lot of confidence. Like if 100 people have seen my boobs, then it does there's nothing to be weird about. And I'm not saying that in the sense of like, I guess what I'm trying to say, there's nothing for me to have shame when it comes to my body. There's no need for me to have shame for the body that God gave me, and there's no need for me to have shame for this human anatomy. Like this is human nature. This is what how women were created, and we're all different sizes and shapes. And so having to save my life, like having to be nude so often, it half nude obviously, it gave me confidence in a very weird way, and I wish I could explain it better, but I almost feel like God used that to help me see myself the way he saw me, because although I was in the midst of this pain and struggle and am I going to die or not, having to be vulnerable in my physical, emotional, and spiritual, it just shifted things because physically I'm naked. And when you think about nakedness, you think you cover yourself, you're afraid, you hold back, and that's the most bare and open you can be. And so not only am I physically naked, but um I'm vulnerable. Like I might have cancer, I might not have cancer. And so I'm emotionally vulnerable too, physically, emotionally, and then spiritually. I didn't have such a profound relationship with God. So spiritually, I'm vulnerable too because I'm at God's mercy. I'm honestly like, I don't even know if you want me to have cancer and what kind of character development you want me to have from that. So I do think there was a lot of little nuggets of things that have built me into the woman I am today. But I do want to point out in a weird, strange way that being half nude as often as I was for all those strangers gave me a lot of body confidence because, like I said, that's the most bare and vulnerable you can be. And to know that there's all these people looking at me and like, it's not to say they don't care, but they're doing their job. And now I understand, not that I'm going to be naked all the time, but my body is mine. My body is beautiful because it is mine. My body is unique because it's mine. Like, and every part of it is for me to take care of it because it is mine. And so it's mine. Like God gave it to me. So technically it's not mine, it's God's because he gives us things, but I'm the stewardess of this body. Like I get to steward it and I get to take care of it. This is my temple. And so when I was in that stage of my life where my life is at the mercy of strangers, I realized, what am I ashamed of? Like what am I ashamed of if this is what God gave me? Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense, but honestly, that's just one thing I want to point out. And it also built my resilience because I was so concerned about my parents' feelings and just like there was this overwhelming like fact across the room. I don't even want to say feeling, but fact that everyone almost pitied me because I was so young, and I could just see it in their eyes. Or as soon as they would ask me, "Oh, but how old are you?" And so I almost felt like I had to be okay. Like when I was around people, I was like, "Oh, it's like nothing," because I didn't want to experience the pity that I kept experiencing. So much so that I didn't talk about my breast tumor or maybe even process it for myself until I was 21, and I had my breast tumor at 19. So it got to a point where I was like, no, this didn't happen to me. And it wasn't that bad. It happened, but it wasn't that bad. And so, yeah, I repress emotions. I don't do that anymore. But, and so it just taught me to have joy in the midst of suffering. Like me finding anything to be happy about while I'm going through this is what kept me going. Because now I'm like having to get comfortable with being naked. I have to get probed around. I have to go back to back appointments. And so now I can't even cook for myself. So my mom comes, we go to my appointment, I get the biopsy, and I'm like all bandaged up and I can't really move my arm and I'm a little drugged up. And I remember here at Publix, they gave me the little thing for handicapped people, and it was really funny. But then I was in a lot of pain, and so I wanted to leave. And so my mom got home. She made me her home cooked soup that makes everything feel better. And yeah, she was just with me in my room. I lived off campus, but I had two other roommates, so really all I had was my room. And she cooked up a storm, and I did not have to cook for about a week. So I had a lot of food. And so I'm very, very, very grateful for her. Without my mom, I wouldn't be here or who I am. So that is God's gift to me for sure. Um, and yeah, now we're just waiting to see if I have cancer. Like, I know that sounds odd, but like, you just wait. You just sitting at the mercy of like what could it be signs. So I just remember praying to God so often that I please didn't have cancer. Like I just don't even know what having cancer is like to the fullest extent, and I just did not want to go through that. I was just scared. So I remember praying. I remember just telling God how scared I was. I was scared to hurt my family because of, how much it would hurt them to see me go through this. I was scared to fail at life because I'm going through this. I was so scared to like just die. Honestly, I was scared to die because I was like, I haven't even lived. And I remember the Bible verse that kind of like stayed with me all the time was let me find it. Held on to was Hebrews 13:5. Keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. So the reason that one was what like kept me through it was because the second part, right? I will never leave you or forsake you. But the first part made me realize that nothing matters more than my life. Like literally nothing mattered. Like not my degree, the school gave me like a scholarship to deal with any financial hardship that came with this, and it didn't matter. All I cared about was not having cancer. And so we get the call, I think like a day or two later, and almost like congratulations, it's benign, it's a past fibroadenoma. And I told my mom, and she was so happy. She called my aunt, and the funny thing is I didn't want to tell anyone, and it's because I had this concept of like going through things and vulnerability meant that I was weak and that I was less than. And so I didn't want to tell anybody about it. And so even me sharing about this in detail now, it's almost like just to glorify God and give him thanks that I did not have cancer. And I remember just being so grateful, but also questioning why didn't I have cancer, because I was like, I'm unworthy in the sense, well, I'm unworthy in general, but all these other women have cancer. So how privileged am I to not have to have gone through that, and then for it to just be benign, like what an honor. And then I remember once I found that out, I logged in so hard into getting my first internship. And my only goal was to do the best that I could when it came to my career and just me as a person, like eating better because I didn't really eating better, working out, like just being the healthiest, most aware person that I can be, because this was like my second chance at life almost in my mind. And so I really feel like God broke me to like put me on my knees with him, because after that, no one can tell me that God isn't real, and no one can tell me that God doesn't love me, because why didn't I have a breast, like why didn't I have cancer? You know? And I like my breast tumor, my lumpectomy was the simplest thing ever. When I tell you, they just it was over this, like it was like under the skin, so it was like really simple. Even when the oncologist was talking about it, she was like, not the oncologist, the surgeon, like the specialist, when she was talking about it, she's like, oh, this is gonna be like super simple, like you're good. And actually I felt even more comforted because she was a grad from the same school I was in, so it's almost like God did this intentionally to let me know, like, I see you, and you're gonna be around people who will relate to you and see you. And so, and she was Hispanic, so it was just beautiful. And I know I'm kind of jumping, but once you find out it's not cancer, even the doctors treat you differently. They're kind of like, oh, you're good. Like, they are not on you the way they were before. They are kind of just like, oh, cool, like you're good. Like, but I was like, I'm a big worrier, not anymore. But I was just Googling and searching and trying to understand, and there was not a lot of information, guys. So I really just had to lean on God, because He didn't even give me information. And you know, well, you guys don't know, but I love facts, and He took that, or He didn't have that for me. So all I had was the Bible. So I just started reading, and then I started just reading about everything. I was like, okay, I want friends because I didn't have any friends to lean on. So how can I be a better friend? I want to be healthy. So what does that mean? Like, how can I do that healthy spiritually, emotionally, so I don't let things like this break me? I want to advance my career and give it all I have. So I remember getting into this program where they like build your resume, and I applied to maybe 100 jobs. I got two interviews, and then I got one offer. So I had my first ever like internship that summer, and I got to retake all my classes in the summer. So it was tough, but I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for that hardship. I'm so grateful for like not having cancer and meeting all the women that I did, and how concerned everyone was more than me. And it goes to show that God will use people to redirect you, and He will break you to rebuild you. But He won't like break you to break you. He'll break you to the point that you can handle it. My dad always says this saying in Spanish, like, Dios aprieta pero no ahorca. And it basically means like God tightens but He doesn't choke. And so he's always saying, he has always said it as I was growing up, but what I understand from it is just like things get tighter and tighter, but He's not gonna let you be strangled and choke. Like, you're gonna be okay. And so that was my first genuine experience with something like that, right? Where I'm in the situation where all I have is God. And so that was the beginning of what I believe was genuine like faith and genuine leaning on God, and like understanding, like peace that goes beyond all understanding. Because I was like, you know what, like if I die, I die, and if I'm good, I'm good. But then behind closed doors, I was like scared out of my mind, but I got to lean on Him in a way I've never done it before, and then I had peace. And then knowing that I didn't have cancer was just like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and a privilege. Like, to be alive is a privilege. To have not experienced cancer, and all I had to experience was like a lumpectomy and ultrasound. So, you know, I was there, but I wasn't fully there. It's like I was in the pit, but I could have been deeper. And even for that, I'm grateful. To have been in that pit, I'm grateful because it made me a better person. It forced me to look within and see that I was just not who I am today. And for that, I'm grateful. And I really wish I could say more details, but I really remember feeling like once you don't have the cancer, like everyone kind of backs off when it comes to the doctors. So I kind of felt a little unseen. I was like, you guys, like, hey, this was still really traumatizing, but I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel because I still had the breast tumor in me. Like, I still had this mass in me. But I continued to live, guys. Like, I didn't stop. I got that internship, you know, glory to God. I kept working out. I was eating healthy. I kept going to classes. Like, I was not going to quit because I was like, I'm not going to die. So I have to make it work. I have to make it the best that I can. And it was just me and God. It was me and God. And I realized like nothing could fix it, right? Like nothing could, no money can take away what was already in my body. No money, no nothing, nothing. No money could have changed the results of it being cancer or not. Only God. So now I know that everything in this life is just God. There's this and this and this, but God. There's all these things happening, but God. And so now I can look at my pain and almost be grateful. Not almost, be grateful and happy and glad. So I'm just glad that I didn't have cancer, but I grieve and I feel for those that did, because being in that room, you can feel the thickness. And so there's a lot more empathy and sensitivity for me, for those people, from me, for anyone who has gone through something similar. And so I'm grateful for that too, right? I'm grateful for the sensitivity that I now have for these people, and the empathy that I now have for anyone in that situation or close to it. And so to now be able to be a support system to someone else, like that's a privilege too. And I'm just so grateful. Like when I say I'm grateful, I think it's an understatement. I don't think the word gratitude does it justice, but I hope that me sharing this story encourages whoever is going through something, whatever your pit is right now, that your pit could be worse, and that like you're gonna be okay, because I'm here. And that was 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more, in 1920. Like I'm 24 now. Yeah. Um, and I did graduate. So that's good. Um, so yeah, like I know God was in the midst of it, and I know God was working in me through that situation, and I am grateful. I'm so grateful, and I hope that this story just helps anyone sit in their pit with a little bit of more hope and more faith and knowing and assurance. So assurance that they're going to be okay, because that is all you have. All you have is your faith, and all you have is your hope, and you can't let anyone take that from you. No circumstance, no person, nothing. Like it can be bad, but you're still here. That means that there's a reason for you to be alive. There's a reason for you to go through what you're going through. You don't know if 5 years from now you're going to meet someone that went through the same situation, and you're going to be able to be there for them. Like my advisor going through what she went through at 19 and being there for me while she's 57 and I'm 19. Had she not gone through that, she wouldn't have been able to relate to me and help me feel seen in the way that she did. And even in the midst of that crazy like experience, I learned resilience. I learned how to multitask. I learned how to do an internship while also doing a full-time job, which is the internship, while also taking classes. Like I was stretched to a level I hadn't been stretched before. So God will stretch you, but he will never break you, right? And when we break a little, we're almost growing. Like sometimes things don't fit anymore because you're outgrowing them. And so it's okay. And you're gonna be okay. And God will never leave you or forsake you. His word says it. His word, he's not God is not a God that he would lie. So I'm not saying like don't feel your feelings, but bring them to him and find the bits of joy and happiness that are in your life right now, even though you're in that pit. Because there's beauty even in the pit. Like the book of Habakkuk, Habakkuk, I think it's Habakkuk. The book of Habakkuk talks about when the trees don't blossom, and like when everything just is in shambles, when the fields don't produce anything, you can rejoice in God, like the Lord of our salvations. That's enough. So just the fact that he heard my prayer, the fact that he died for us, like all those little things, the fact that we can pray to someone, and or we can pray to someone, we can pray to God, and he will comfort us. That is something to be grateful and rejoice about. So rejoice in your pit and cry as much as you need to cry, but don't quit. Don't quit. Don't give up. Thank you for listening to another episode of Unworthy Yet Loved. I'm so grateful that you guys stayed this far, and I really do pray and hope that this story helps someone. And I hope to see you guys again next time. Shalom, shalom. Bye, everyone.